Hi everybody, it's us, the Alta girls. Alta is a high society romance anthology featuring 3 stories by 3 authors. So that's me, Suzette, Borja, and Bianca Mori. That's not the right order, but anyway, and it features the lovely world of the Aritz family. My short story is called Longing For, and it features Ali Medina. She works as an assistant to the matriarch of the Aritz family, and her job is basically to make sure that everything that Mamita needs for her 90th birthday party is set. Now, one of the things Mamita asked her to do is to go to Vienna with her grandson, Logan Aritz. But the problem is, Ali has a huge crush on Logan. And so basically, the trip is sort of Mamita's way to get that secret thing that she needs to get in Vienna, and as a way for Ali and Logan to hopefully get together and make all of the great grandchildren for her.
I wrote the second story, Safe Places. It's about Natalia Aritz. She is an artist who comes back to Manila after several years in Italy, and she comes back a little defeated and heartbroken and just really not into mingling with people. However, she has to meet with Nikki Aventado, one of her college classmates. And Nikki has the hugest crush on her, but it's a secret. He meets with her because his grandfather had an important message to deliver to her grandmother, Mamita, the Aritz matriarch, whose birthday party starts the whole anthology.
Here Comes the One. It's about a social media influencer with a very long name, Princess Grace Kelly Monago, who catches the attention of the oldest Aritz cousin, Joaquin, because of a video that went viral.
Safe. I hope you guys are staying at home. The Aritzes certainly are. So as a little treat for you, we 3 writers came up with a little group chat between the Aritz cousins and their significant others. So, okay, without further ado, welcome to Social Distancing.
I've been feeling so down, yeah. Can you tell me why? Can you tell me why I'm down, yeah? No friends of mine around, yeah. Now I'm thinking might have caught the June blues, yeah. I wanna drown myself inside the juice, yeah. You know I keep on running from the truth. I'm just a lonely fucking you. Now when I drive around, don't feel it up. Why it's getting colder when the sun come out? Might just waste away, don't know what life about. Another day go by, don't know what got me down. June blues, yeah, I got the June blues, yeah. Walk down like who you? Yeah, go back to June blues, yeah. It's just the June blues, yeah. Walk around like who you, yeah. Just something you get used to. Breaking news got me breaking. I was present, hopeless, praying. Struck down at 20, plenty left to put behind you. You ain't peaked, devil speaking, now they speaking about you, leave it alone. Hope you grinning while you watch your bros on some soulful sunny shit to brighten up a wounded soul. Honest, you the penny, pick it up like Chevy, New Age Machiavelli, disagree, don't tell me, now you in infinity, we 98, trust that he be good. On the ball like BB, don't make no mistakes, got the faith, the 18 just not gon' be the same. Finna bleed down generations, not gon' be in vain. Too young, why you gotta go, I just wanna know now, true now. Crying getting old, hope you freed your soul, I might have caught the June blues, yeah. I wanna drown myself inside the juice, yeah. You know I keep on running from the truth. Was that not? I'm just a lonely fucking you. Now when I drive around, don't feel it up. Why it's getting colder when the sun comes walk around like who you, yeah. Just something you get used to, yeah. Go blame the drum blows, yeah. It's just the drum blows, yeah. Walk around like who you, yeah. Just something you get used to, yeah. Fuck. Down, yeah. I've been feeling so down, yeah. Can you tell me why? Can you tell me why I'm down, yeah. No friends of mine around, yeah. Now I'm thinking might have caught the June blues, yeah. I wanna drown myself inside the juice, yeah. You know I keep on running from the truth. Was that not? I'm just a lonely fucking you. Now when I drive around, don't feel it all. Why it's getting colder when the sun come out? Might just waste away, don't know what life about. Another day go by, don't know what got me down. June blues, yeah, I got the June blues, yeah. Walk down like who you, yeah. It's something you get used to, yeah. Go back to June blues, yeah. It's just the June.
Please don't forget to buy a copy of Alta from Amazon because print copies are currently sold out.
So, if you want to know what happens next to Nikki and Natalia, because sparks definitely fly, please check out Alta on Amazon. Enjoy!
If you like Pico and you want to find out what it has got to do with the story, then please buy and download Alta on Amazon. All the stories here have heat level 3 and features and guarantees a happy ever after. So thank you for all your support. Keep safe and continue practicing social distancing. Bye.
Here Comes the One by Suzette de Borja. It wasn't Kelly's 27 years of existence that went flashing before her eyes when she started tumbling down that steep pathway in Tagaytay. As she rolled down the flagstone slope, there was no cinematic montage of her whole life whizzing past in a few seconds. Instead, the short time frame provided enough for a quick, revealing insight or two about her current situation. That this was all Joaquin Aritza's goddamn fault. And that this was really, really all Joaquin Aritza's goddamn fault. Aray! The huge, carved wooden door at the bottom of the pathway broke Kelly's fall. She massaged her hip, which bore the brunt of her dramatic descent. From her inelegant sprawl, she lifted her head and tried to look for her phone. Shit. It was nowhere in sight. But the contents of her bag were strewn everywhere. Makeup, her wallet, car keys. Plus these designer bags and their lack of zippers. She dropped her head back, her gaze fixing on the wooden slats of the extended eave that shaded the entrance of the house. She tried to even her rapid breaths and even more rapid heartbeats. Her road trip was one series of unfortunate events. What was one more? The weather heard her. An intense flash of light and a loud clap of thunder heralded the massive downpour of water. Kelly tried to push herself up. The awning was of no use. In a few minutes, Kelly was soaked. She did the only thing she could do in the face of such wet adversity. She laughed. She laughed to compete with the rain and thunder. She laughed at herself for getting herself into such a situation in the first place. And fate, because it had such a wicked sense of humor, laughed back. The rain suddenly stopped. The huge, heavy door swung open. Kelly looked way, way up and met a pair of startled, hazel-brown eyes looking down at her. It was a Naritz, all right, but not the particular one she was expecting to see right at that moment. "Hello?" she croaked. She wasn't laughing anymore. "What the hell?" Joaquin Naritz stared down at her in complete astonishment. His bewildered gaze roamed over her supine form, the debris of her accident, and back to her, sprawled by his feet on top of a doormat. She was expecting him, of course. She'd come all the way to Tagaytay to eat humble pie, but she was not expecting their encounter to be so soon. It always took some time for Kelly's brain to catch up with her long-held antipathy for the man. There were always those crucial few seconds upon seeing him that Kelly would, against better judgment, do a brief catalogue of his physical attributes, hoping maybe that she'd overestimated how tall he was, how long and dark the eyelashes fringing his hazel eyes were, or how sexy his jawline was now roughed with stubble. After all, a proper-fitting suit, strategic lighting, and a safe, ogling distance can make any man reasonably attractive. And every damn time, Kelly would be wrong, because her breath would hitch, her heart short-changing by several beats, her nerves would zing and zang. It was annoying. "What the hell are you doing here, Miss Monago?" Kelly snapped out of her mooning, irritated at herself and at the object of her misplaced, albeit a few seconds, admiration. "Are you stalking me now?" "I was invited," Kelly said, with as much dignity as she could muster, "to the weekend party." "You were invited," he enunciated each word with excruciating clarity. "To a weekend party." "Yes," Kelly bit out, "by Sebastian." His face darkened at the mention of his brother's name. He muttered something that sounded a lot like brat. Every part of Kelly's body that could bristle, bristled. "Am I not good enough to warrant an invite?" Joaquin Aritz's face darkened like the ominous clouds scurrying across the sky. His cheeks flushed. "To a fictional weekend party." Kelly didn't have time to pay attention to the fact that he did not answer her question. "What do you mean a fictional party?" Joaquin's usual suit had been exchanged for a white cotton shirt, denim pants, and bare feet. The immaculately groomed hair replaced by bed hair, with a few silver smattered strands sticking this way and that. He looked approachable. Then he spoke, and everything reverted to abnormal. "Look around you, Miss Monago. Do you see any signs of a party?" "Hard to look around right now, seeing as I'm inelegantly sprawled by your bare feet," she muttered sarcastically. "What are you doing, Kelly? You're supposed to apologize, not antagonize." "Where's Sebastian?" "I think you already know the answer to your question." Joaquin Aritz's voice was hard. He ran a hand through his hair. She noted the faint purple smudges under his eyes. They appeared tired, but there was nothing soft nor fatigued with the way he was studying her. Dread solidified in her stomach. Sebastian was supposed to be here. He was going to help me. Kelly bit her lip. Again, he's not, he said in a tight, restrained voice. His features had rearranged back to their stern set. The brows knitted, the lips flat and pulled tight, the eyes critical. Kelly attempted to salvage what was left of her dignity by pulling on the edge of her skirt to cover her thighs. There would be enough time for the apology later, when she was preferably standing and he was not looming over her. She braced her forearms and tried to push herself up to a sitting position. Shit. The rough mat abraded her skin. A large hand appeared in front of her face. She weighed the possibility of further humiliation trying to stand on her own and then falling flat on her face, versus accepting aid reluctantly given. She chose to be pragmatic. The hand was warm and large and smooth. Kelly allowed herself to be pulled to her feet. Thank you. She shook out her hair and her clothes, bearing the discomfort and the sinking, horrifying fact that Joaquin was telling the truth. Here Comes the One by Suzette de Borja.
Longing For by Carla de Guzman. The last time she had flown, Ali was asked at the immigration desk about her job, where her return ticket was, and where she was staying. Today, she was asked 0 questions and was settled comfortably in her very own first-class seat on the plane. She was trying her hardest to keep cool, but how could she when they had slippers, a little toiletry kit that had fancy moisturizer, and ooh, free champagne. Yes, please. Ali settled into her seat, putting her feet up and taking photo after photo. She was browsing the movie selection on the console when one of the selections reminded her of the man sitting in the next seat to hers. Logan had not said anything since they boarded, busy with reading something on his phone, but he had changed into the soft slippers. Have you ever seen Sense and Sensibility? She asked before she took a sip of champagne to seem extra casual. Logan, surprisingly, was drinking black coffee. He transferred to a tablet and was now furrowing a quizzical brow at it like he was trying to make it levitate. Always resignation and acceptance, always prudence and honor and duty. Eleanor, where is your heart? He recited deadpan and without skipping a beat. Then he smiled. Yes, I have. Damn. Those smiles are dangerous. He'd smiled at her that way before. He had every time he had been introduced to her. But now, It lasted a lot longer than a second, and it felt better because she knew it wasn't just a fleeting, polite smile. And so, Ali vowed to tell her great grandchildren one day that she'd fallen in love with Logan when he first quoted Austen to her. You don't seem the type to read Austen for leisure. Business books, yeah, seems to be more your speed, she said as she put the champagne aside. It seemed like the smarter thing to do. Her cheeks were already flaming red. I had to read it for Lit Minor. I did a paper on Jane Austen. Ali's jaw dropped. You're a Lit Minor. It was a requirement for law school. He shrugged. Well, I didn't end up going, but I ended up loving Austen anyway. Oh. Ali's lit degree was shaking. No, quaking, really. So you were going to be a lawyer? In the service of the family, yes, he said, putting his tablet down, and she felt a small sense of triumph that she'd gotten him to put it away. But I decided against it. I mean, it's better that way. Tito Mike and Kuya Joaquin have a handle on the whole business, and I'm happy where I am. His gaze lingered on her face. Ali's heart burst. Okay, my turn to ask you something, he announced. Ali's eyebrow shot up. We weren't really exchanging questions. He leaned forward in his seat, hands clasped over one knee. It was the most unposed thing he'd ever done in front of Ali, looking up at her like he could divine answers from her with that puppy dog face. Why did you pretend that we'd never met before? Ali managed to say before she backtracked and decided she might as well tell him the truth. I just assumed you didn't remember me. And you didn't the second time we met. Okay, I don't know if Mamitas told you this while gossiping about me. He said it like he'd known all along, but I'm bad with names. Horrible. I usually have someone with me to, whisper the name of the person I'm talking to. One time we were at a charity ball and Natalia told me some Tito's name was Christopher. And I totally believed her. I take it it wasn't his name. No. It was Cecil Carandang. Despite herself, Ali laughed. She wondered how many people were privileged enough to know this story. It didn't sound like Logan told a lot of people. Well, I'm so glad I can amuse you, Ali, he said, and she liked the way he said her name. Lande. The first time we met, I remembered you, of course, but I'd blanked on your name, which was why I asked. The second time, you beat me to introducing yourself, and by the third time, it was too late. We'd fall into the void. The void? She raised an eyebrow. The void of awkwardness, he shrugged. Then when you showed up to dinner, I made a decision. I would pull us out of that hole, even at the risk of looking like a douche who pretended not to know your name. Yeah, you did look a bit of like a douche. Ali conceded, laughing when he looked like she'd punched him. Okay, hold on. You said you remembered me the first time we met. When had you seen me before? My cousin Seb pointed you out to me once. It was late, and he and I were in your office to bring Mamita to the mahjong game we were hosting. You had headphones on, so I guess you didn't see me. But you were singing. Very loudly. Lizzo. It was Lizzo, I think. Ali's jaw dropped just as the stewardess asked them to prepare for takeoff. Seatbelts on, chairs in the upright position, gazes forward. Okay, you were filling up gift bags for the Christmas party, I think. She was about to say something in retort when Logan shrugged and kept talking. I think that was the day I decided that I liked you. I was all she managed to say. She saw him press his lips together as if waiting for her to say anything more was an impossible struggle. Logan, you don't have to say anything if you don't want to. I know it's not. Whatever you were about to say, it's not, she told him, reaching out, giving into the urge to hold his hand. Color flushed his cheeks, and Allie's cheeks were hurting from smiling too much. Logan, the thing is, I've always liked you too. And I thought it was just an impossible little crush. But, he inhaled sharply. But I don't know, she said, and had Allie been more sensible, she would have chosen her words carefully. The more I see you, the more it's starting to feel a bit more possible. The plane jerked, and a few minutes later started moving along the runways. Allie's stomach felt like it was loaded with 1,000 impatient butterflies, and her head was spinning a little. It wasn't air sickness. They hadn't even taken off. It was him. The possibility of him. One that she never allowed herself to even imagine before. Logan's hand was right next to her armrest. He gave Allie a look, as if to ask permission for clasping her hand. He squeezed it and smiled. Then, in the precious seconds they had left of this moment, he kissed the back of her hand. Then he let go. Longing For by Carla de Guzman.
Safe Places by Bianca Mori. Natalia stood at the kitchen's loading dock, smoking a cigarette and scanning the darkness outside. The bare back of her glittery serpent-green gown began to shine with sweat and the weight of the gazes of the cooks and waitstaff scurrying to and from the kitchen. What must she be doing? They were probably asking themselves, eyeing the tall, olive-skinned party guests standing out there where the salmon and extra linen napkins and coolers of alcohol were being unloaded. What am I indeed? She muttered, grounding out her cigarette under the pointed toes of her spiky Valentino heels. A week ago, her cousin Seb had asked if he could give her new number to an old classmate of hers. She'd heard Nikki's name and said yes immediately, and then they met, and he asked her for an outrageous favor. Why she'd said yes so quickly again? His face flashed before her eyes, the way his normally mischievous eyes watered when he talked about his grandfather. How crushed he'd been when she said no. When she returned from Europe and the anonymity the continent afforded, her father's insistence she be accompanied by a bodyguard at all times seemed like a stupid indulgence. Now, though, standing in the near dark, surrounded by strangers, well, she was starting to feel paranoid. Oh, curse her dad and his dire predictions of kidnapping. Steady, Natalia, she told herself. Bronson was a professional. He was probably lurking around here somewhere, still watching, still guarding, but out of sight. He could consider the bribe a discretionary bonus. Except it was awfully dark and still out here. Was the club cost-cutting, turning off the floodlights fronting the polo field? Surely. Her heart jumped as a shadow detached itself from the darkness behind a park delivery van. God, finally, she hissed, as the shadow resolved into the very person she wanted to pinch. What took you so long, Nikki? Sorry, the guards at the gatehouse wanted to check the trunk of your car. Bronson had to do some fast talking to get them off it. I think he gave them some Chivas Regal. He said to stay around for a couple of shots before they waved him through. Yeah, he always keeps some in the trunk for emergencies. She stepped back. Wait, what? He put you in the trunk? Well, how else was he going to smuggle me in? He looked into her eyes. Relax. I parked in the church. Anything happens, I can run right out and make it there in 10 minutes. Promise. His wide mouth, always so expressive, stretched into a lopsided grin as he ran his hand through his unruly locks and stuck it into the pocket of black. She supposed it had been black once. Corduroys. The plumbing trousers were paired with a white short-sleeve polo and a garishly red satin tie. What the hell are you wearing? She demanded. You said formal attire. He looked down at his outfit and smiled back at her, like all this was vastly amusing. The more she saw of it, the chain loop from belt hook to back pocket, the scuffed Doc Martens, the more she despaired. This is your definition of formal? I wore this at my cousin's wedding. He lent me a blazer. She shut her eyes tightly and prayed for strength. Was it too much to ask to have borrowed it tonight as well? You look like the sixth trumpeter in a ska band. Well, that's what I was going for. He flashed her 2 thumbs up. Fuck my life, Nikki. Chill, Natalia Carmelia. I don't need to wear tails to meet your mamita. On the contrary, Michael Nicholas, we're at a charity gala. How are you supposed to blend in looking like that? It was a beat too late when she realized how her that came out. While she only meant for it to be commentary on the general inappropriateness of Nikki's attire, to another person it sounded dripping with disdain and ringing with snobbery. Nikki's eyes, which had shone with amusement just a second ago, narrowed. Oh, I'm sorry, just let me call my personal shopper and valet. Maybe they can grab me something from Gucci. He pretended to check his phone. She supposed she'd been misunderstood once again. Par for the course when one was not only wealthy, but had one's last name plastered as a drugstore signage on nearly every street corner in the country. People always assumed that she was judging them, that she was always doing the mental mathematics of weighing their net worth, pedigree, and connections against hers. They thought she was constantly ranking the people around her on a scale of plebeian to artiste, which resulted in them either self-selecting out of her notice or trying their darndest to prove themselves worthy of her notice. She had just hoped that Nikki remained one of the few people above this. When they were classmates in college at an experimental art school, he'd always treated her like everyone else, which meant that he'd just been as cocky and annoying to her as he was to his unfortunate dorm mates. But Nikki looked at her now with an expression that she'd come to recognize and loathe in her acquaintances. Deference. At least, that's how she read the low-level awe in his face as his gaze fitted over her dress. No, she wasn't the girl he once knew. She was heavier than before, for a start. And inside, where it counted, she'd changed. He couldn't possibly be... Stop looking at me like that, she growled. Can't help it. You look like poison ivy. His mouth tipped up as he said it, a hint of his old annoying manner, but the look in his eyes still unnerved her. That smile made her feel like she was on a boat, unsteady on her feet. She needed to put a stop to this heady feeling and pasted a scowl on her face. Now, can you see why I'm complaining about your outfit? I don't compare to your boyfriends in Florence, do I? Her blood froze. Here she was, feeling as though she was slowly putting that damn city behind her, but it seemed to follow her here. Don't talk to me about Florence. Safe Places by Bianca Mori.